Welcome back to the Jeremy Kyle Show. I'm your stand-in host, Dre Harrison, and the DNA test can confirm that Alex Palou is indeed 100% him. Welcome back to Motorsport 101. If I ever compare myself to Jeremy Kyle ever again on this show, you listeners have the permission to shoot me in the back of the head. Hey, everybody, welcome to episode welcome to episode 527 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Dre Harrison. Glad you could join us as ever. Welcome to our big fuck-off IndyCar catch-up episode, because we got a lot to get through over the next hour and change or so. Catch up for IndyCar. For those who don't know, yes, you may have noticed we didn't do a Road America episode last week because we went all in on Le Mans and we just didn't really want to record 4 episodes in basically a week covering that. There wasn't a huge amount to take away from Road America that besides, oh shit, Penske just seal clubbed the fucking field. So that was fun. You know, Will Power got his first win in 2 years, and that was nice. Good for him. Basically, good to see that the old dog still got it. And we had the weird Josef Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin. We are no longer friends. I'm going to wave past you as I overtake you shit that Joseph's doing. Which, look. Josef Newgarden is being a colossal weirdo this year, and I don't quite know what to make of it. Shit's strange. Isn't that right, Cam Buckley?
He's traded everything. His soul, his right turn form for Indy 500 wins. And honestly, understandable.
It's a bold strategy, Colton. Let's see if it pays off for him. It seems to be working.
2 500s in a row. It is paying off. Certainly not for his championship hopes this weekend. Yikes.
I love that friend of the show, Not Fifth Gear, had that great meme after this past race at Laguna Sega where it was like, we'd like the ability to turn right, and it was a picture of Josef Newgarden. It was also the same picture as saying, I've won 2 Indy 500s. And you just because of the way IndyCar marked itself, you just got to shrug your shoulders and go, yeah, fair enough. He's like, you can't even argue with that. It's like...
But Dre... This podcast is not about Josef Newgarden.
It is not.
This podcast is about him. The Himulation. Him Buck 2. Him Kardashian. They tested his DNA. Turns out it's 100% Himalayan. Alex Palou.
Alex Palou beat that ass at Laguna. And not the first time I've said this. Alex Palou beat that ass at Laguna Seca again. In spectacular fashion over the course of this 95-lap race. We'll talk about it a lot more over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. Again, we've already covered pretty much all the shit from Road America. We'll talk a little bit about what's happened at McLaren, because we did kind of allude to it a little bit in our Le Mans review, if you want to hear some of my initial thoughts and some of RJ's thoughts on that as much as RJ can give you at 4 a.m. in a Japanese hotel room. But I suspect Cam Buckley won't be so kind about that in the coming minutes. And we'll also talk about the brand new IndyCar to Fox deal that was announced last week as well. Cam will be taking over that segment because I'm not American, even though I sound like it sometimes. So here we are. All of that in the next 45 minutes or so, but places you can find us real quick. We're on youtube.com/Motorsport101. We're on Instagram at Motorsport101pod. We're on Elon Musk's failed business investments, the social media one specifically, at Dre Harrison 101, at cbuckley917, and our podcast itself is at Motorsport_101. Our website, Motorsport101.com. has got all of our written content, all of our audio content as well, is up on that page. And of course, if you're really lucky, so you can back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/Motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of our content, written content, our full podcast as well. And if you back us at the $10 level, you can also get into the supporters club of our Discord server, as well as listen to, everything we have early, as well as into these episodes live as they're being recorded. We very much appreciate you. Also, including Ben Jarrett, who backed us at the $10 level. So thank you very much, Ben. Much appreciated,
thank you, Ben.
Sir. thank you so much for backing us at that level. That's incredibly generous of you. Please let us know if you want in on the Discord server, by the way. Do reach out if you haven't done so already. This Patreon's messaging is terrible. But do let me know if somewhere on the internet if you want to get in on that some way. But thank you so much for backing us on there, sir. Yes, without further ado, let's get into IndyCar's Grand Prix of Laguna Seca.
Alex Palou. My goodness. He was on pole. He was passed for the lead early on by Kyle Kirkwood at Laguna Sega. And then pulled out the second stint of the gods in the middle period of the race, pulling out a 22-second lead on used black prime tires to get back into contention. He flew past Colton, Herta, and Alex Rossi on fresher rubber for winning a much delayed closing stands of the race with 5 cautions to close it out, to take the win and the championship lead. How impressive was that, Dre?
I don't think...
I know, you're without words. I know.
Right. Rare for me. Short story, might be the most impressive drive I've seen in any of the big series so far this year. That was... I laughed openly in the middle of this race when Palou had that used tyre stint in the middle of the race, because I openly admit I was in James Hinchcliffe's camp, because James Hinch was in the commentary box alongside Townsend Bell and Kevin Lee, because Diffie's was doing the US track and field trials. He was too busy watching Noah Lyles pull Yu-Gi-Oh cards out of his jerseys. Very cool, I must say, by the way. I thought when they put him on prime tyres, the black tyre, and came out of the pits, I thought the Ganassi had got it wrong. Again. Because we saw this story at Road America. Scott Dixon had to get on a pair of alternates, and it didn't work, and it completely derailed his Road America race. He finished, I think it was 17th in the end, or something silly like that, and it cost him dearly in the title race. I thought it was a lot like Palou in Detroit, when he was put on a pair of alternates, and Palou lost grip very quickly and fell down the order before Detroit happened, basically, or before we had a string of cautions. I thought the Ganassi department had gotten this wrong. They kind of needed a caution for this to work out in the way that it did, because Palou stayed out. He had gone long on his first stint when everybody else had undercut. Alex Rossi being the big winner of that. He went 2 laps under and then came out with a 4-second lead on the field. The undercut was super powerful around Laguna Seca. I thought Palou had gotten it wrong because he came out like 4th. And then I think quickly fell like the 5th or 6th after that first round of stops. But then the caution came out for Luca Giotto's crash into the outside wall. And all the leaders come in for a top. I didn't think people were going to stop. But then everybody in half the field takes fresh rubber and a top up at that point. I thought, well, that's strange, because they're still going to need 2 more stops to the end somewhere. Palou stays out, takes the clean air, and then because the second group are stuck with the traffic because half the field didn't come in, Palou's got clean air, and he just ran a train on these motherfuckers. He was a second and a half a lap faster almost in the field. There was a 16-lap window from when the caution comes in, and they're green again. So when Palou stops for the second time on lap 55 out of 95, he put out 22 seconds on Colton Herta in 16 laps. It's almost a second and a half a lap. It's astonishing pace. It is
dismantling of the field.
I thought Palou was out of contention. By the time he came back out of the pit stop, he'd gotten back in front of Kyle Kirkwood again. He made up all the time that he'd lost on the first stint, and then some, because he was able to overcut and then get back ahead of Kirkwood again when the field shook itself out. And at that point, it was smooth sailing for Palou until the late round of cautions we got. The pace he had in clean air was astonishing. He was completely untouchable the whole way through.
He effectively pulled a pit stop gap on the field across his final stints.
Yeah, it was 2/3 of a pit stop because it was about 32 seconds for a pit stop at Laguna Seca. It's a long pit exit as well because it goes all the way down past the inside of the Andretti hairpin before you come back out again. It's a long
thing
pit
is, Dre, when he came back out from his black tire stint onto the reds, he was on fresh reds while everyone else's were shot.
Mm-hmm. And he could coast up to the back of Alex Rossi and Colton Herta, who were the only two guys in front of him after that stint, and passed him easily. Like, past Herta at the corkscrew, and Herta didn't even contest it because he knew there was no point in even trying. It was a pair of astonishing stints. It was overwhelming blunt force trauma that won this race for Alex Palou. And props to Barry Hanser. He's so valuable in that number 10 garage. I mean, he came back from a cancer scare last year and has gone back to just beating that ass. And when you've got the best driver in IndyCar, one of the best fuel savers in IndyCar, one of the most versatile talents in the world today, regardless of discipline, because we saw how brilliant he was at Le Mans as well, just a week prior to this. He's a different gravy, this kid. And he's still only...
Tough Le Mans as well. I mean, the rain was... I'm sure you talked about it enough on the show I wasn't here for. The rain was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And he looked like he had been in a prototype for years. He then gets back to his day job a week later, and he completely dismantled Colton Herta at his home track at the scene of his first win.
Yeah. People forget, Colton Herta won at Laguna Seca. I want to say it was his second win, because I believe he won at COTA first. That was the one year we went to the Circuit of the Americas in IndyCar, but I believe Laguna Seca was his second win. But even so, he won that race as a 19-year-old. Like, Colton Herta is arguably... Laguna Seca is arguably his strongest track. Between that and maybe Nashville when we had the street circuit. Point is, Colton is stupid good at home. He is ridiculous at Laguna Seca. And Colton did nothing wrong. He drove a fantastic race this weekend. And
he just got broken over
any other day
someone's
he
knee.
wins this. And any other day he snaps that. I think it's a 34 race streak without a win. This time round, it just didn't matter. There was nothing Colton can do, and he admitted as such after the race was over. It was just... the second was the best he could have gotten that day. Even at the end when they were on...
I mean, Dre, between him and Max, I mean, 2 Drive of the Year contenders on the same day.
Yeah, maybe 3 in a week if you're throwing Brendan Hartley at Le Mans, and given how fast he was the entire Le Mans. Like, we gave him his flowers in that Le Mans review.
And Nicholas Nielsen for that final stint.
Lightest foot in the West.
Just, what can we say about Alex Palou that hasn't already been said? You know, Dre, this kid from Super Formula, I think he's going to be real solid over here.
Yes.
Man, he is real fucking good. And the weird thing is that this has not really been a fairly quiet championship defense attempt so far this year. It hasn't been bad by any means, but it hasn't been the crushing dominance from the summer of last year. And then he pulls this out. This is more impressive than anything he did last year, short of like the broken front wing drive.
He didn't even win it. That was for a second place, which is wild in of itself.
He had a third of a front wing functioning by that point. I think we can give him. I think we can give him mitigating circumstances on losing that race.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, outside of Detroit, that wasn't his fault. Palou has not finished a race outside of the top 5 this season. But he's not... the one win he had before then was the non-championship Thermal Club round, where he destroyed the field then as well. But again, it just kind of felt flat because we all knew the Thermal race was just for cash. Even so, he's not had that race where he's just taken the field by the scruff of the neck yet this year, because he did that a couple of times in that 2023 season where he won 5 races. It was Mid-Ohio, it was... races like that where he was just in complete control from the start of that race pretty much all the way to the end, which is incredibly hard to do in IndyCar given how batshit insane it can get on on occasion and how mental it can be for many reasons during this series. And for Palou to do that with such a topsy-turvy feels this year, it's been Will Power's been very, very good for the most part this season. Dixon is Dixon, he usually is. You know, there's been the usual set of threats that you would normally associate. Like Colton Herta has been excellent, very quietly under the radar. Kyle Kirkwood has been superb this year. He's
another great drive here. They probably didn't get the reward that the drive, warranted, because he was probably the biggest victim in terms of how the strategy played out with that caution and the interplay between the red and black runners at that point.
Kyle Kirkwood's fifth in the championship right now, and I feel like no one's talked about it.
Quietly, very, very solid. This was the expectation. This was what we wanted when we first saw him get to Andretti, and he has been class thus far. And a much higher floor this year. Last year, the floor was really very nasty, but the heights were good. Now he's picked that floor way up. Arguably the highest floor of any of the Andretti runners, I would say.
7 out of 8 races in the top 10 so far this season for Kyle Kirkwood. And his worst finish is 11th.
Year 2, that's solid. That is damn solid. The problem is that the highest floor guy in IndyCar is capable of doing this on any given weekend.
There's maybe 2-3 guys in the field who can do what Alex Palou just did to win a race. Dixon, I'd say maybe Will Power on a good day. Josef on a good day. Pato maybe on an oval on a good day can do that. Like, there's not many.
Pato got the pinata treatment all weekend.
Still ended up 8th in the end. He got a bit lucky with the way the caution shook out, but he ended up 8th. But even
he'll be happy to get out of here with an 8th place.
Yeah, was nowhere this weekend in terms of pace. But yeah, like, there's not much more that I can really add that hasn't already been said. I've said it on Twitter. I will say it again here. He's 1B for me as the best driver in the world right now in any racing series. Max Verstappen is the only guy in his ballpark for me. I think he clears everybody in IndyCar right now, and he has been doing this since 2022, where he's just been ridiculously consistent, barely puts a foot wrong, and when everything clicks for Alex Palou, he's unbeatable. It is as simple as that. You don't touch him if he has a clean race at the front of the field. He's just so immensely hard to beat.
He's like a greatest hits of every great trait of every great IndyCar driver rolled into one.
The pace of a Power or a Newgarden, the tactical nous of a Scott Dixon, the strategic element and the temperament of a Scott Dixon, just the aggression of someone like Pato O'Ward, but without crossing over that line into penalty sort of territory. He's just a blend of all of the fields of modern greats. I think that's a great way of putting it, Cam. I think he is a greatest hits album. He is the best of the Beatles. That's just who he is, and that's what makes him so effective.
This race was his white album.
Mm-hmm. Just incredible stuff all around.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been this quiet thus far, and he's now taken the championship lead emphatically after this race, because Penske spent the entire weekend imploding despite a get-out-of-jail-free card via IndyCar's wonderful yellow flag, not rules. Garbage, by the way. It would be garbage no matter who it benefits. It's still garbage.
Yeah, I mean, Josef Newgarden hit the jackpot by staying out as long as did going off sequence and then getting that caution when Christian Lundgaard put Marcus Armstrong out of the race. Armstrong's car is stranded
Cancel
on the
your
inside.
campaign, by the way. Jail Lundgaard.
I can't even argue with you.
Keep him there. That was so bad.
It was really sloppy racecraft from Lundgaard. I'm not even going to try and deny that. No, it was sloppy racecraft. But then Armstrong's car is stranded and left on the inside of a 140-mile-an-hour corner for a good minute while they let Josef Newgarden, who was in the lead of the race at the time, decide whether he wants to come into the pits or not, and then close the pit lane via a caution once Newgarden's inside. It's complete. I've said this so many times before. It's complete bullshit. It's the worst rule in modern day motorsport. It's IndyCar's way of thinking it's being fair when it's not. The whole point of running off sequence is hoping you get a lucky caution. That's the whole point. You don't have to facilitate that yourself by letting the leader choose whether he wants to come in or not. It's bullshit. It's as near as a racing series gets to manipulating its own result. It's bollocks. And I'm glad that most IndyCar fans think it's a bollocks rule. I got to be fair to IndyCar, and their fans can be very homerish at times. The uniform stances, it's a shit rule. Don't close the pits on a caution.
It's the equivalent. We talked about this with football. I was talking a little bit last night with hockey, because if you didn't know, the Oilers last night failed to do the comeback. Came back 3-0, lost Game 7. Not calling something in the want of not affecting the result affects the result. It's how I felt. It's how I felt about what happened with Le Mans with the Ferrari door situation. Not to go on a rant about that because I'll be here all week. But by swallowing the whistle or by changing around how the call works to not affect someone, you're affecting everyone else.
Right.
And every time IndyCar does this, and they're consistently bad with it, hey, at least they don't swing back and forth with it.
No.
It's just so, I don't know of another series that does this.
They don't. No series will intentionally delay a caution, which is in of itself an incredibly dangerous thing to do. It compromises IndyCar's otherwise wonderful AMR safety team, the best in the business.
It undermines them.
Yeah, and people will gush about how brilliant their safety team is, but then conveniently ignore the fact that they will delay caution so that the safety team can't respond to a stricken car in time until the series at race direction decides when it wants to throw a caution. It's bullshit. It's effectively manipulating the result of a race. It compromises the safety of the competitors, and as a direct result in this particular instance, Josef Newgarden, who was nowhere all day long, all of a sudden gets to take his pit stop where everybody else is under full course yellow conditions, and he comes out in second, which is just complete bullshit. It's Newgarden was the luckiest man alive, and the only reason that people aren't talking about this more is because he himself made 2 mistakes after the caution period was over. And completely threw away what would have been the easiest second place he'll ever get in his life. Because Josef Newgarden, for some reason, is still struggling to know how to turn right, which is remarkable given until last year I called him the best driver in this series, which is just he's got the second place at Road America and the 4th at Long Beach. Besides that, his run streak has been trashed this year again. 16th in Barber, 17th at the Indy Road Course. Was disqualified in St. Pete for cheating. And now here, again, he was 19th. Penske across the board was rough this race. Power had to come back from his own mistake from the back of the field and shithouse the 7th. And McLaughlin basically committed seppuku on his own teammate.
Yeah, because McLaughlin did a hopeless overtake attempt and spun himself out in the process.
And then broke his car.
Derailing Will's race and broke his car. So McLaughlin effectively came away from here with nothing, and Newgarden went off twice at turn 6. And was it turn 6?
Yeah, before the Rahal straight, I think it was.
Turn 6.
Same corner
Twice, and the same corner where the teammates came together. Not a good corner for the Penske guys.
No, apparently,
weirdly sloppy from that.
Yeah, it cost them dearly because it's now pegged back all 3 of their title campaigns. Palou now has a 23-point lead in the standings over Will Power in second. Josef Newgarden is now 104 points back at the halfway point of this season. And McLaughlin...
I would tell you he's out of it.
McLaughlin's now 97 back. These guys were 3rd and 5th in the championship last year. Newgarden's won 2 Astor Cups already. He spent a good half-decade treating second as the floor. In terms of the Astor Cup. And McLaughlin's currently 7th in the 8th in standings. Newgarden is 9th in the championship right now. He's 5 points better than Felix Rosenquist.
Dre, book this. You ain't closing a 104-point gap on Alex Palou.
Even with 6 ovals still to go?
Some of those are short ovals. Dre, Alex Palou's worst finish last year was what?
8th.
Yeah.
And it wasn't on an oval, it was at St. Pete the first round of the year.
Yeah, exactly.
His lowest result on an oval was 7th.
Do you get the picture here?
Let's just say if this was a snooker match, we'd be in the you need snookers required to get back into this frame kind of mode here. You are now relying on your opponent making unforced errors, and Palou has not made an unforced error at a Grand Prix in probably a year and a half. So, yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, just I find it very hard for Newgarden to make up 104 points on Alex Palou in the space of half a season, because we made the same argument about Newgarden last year and his season ended when he hit the wall at Gateway, you know, and when he was this close to, he was in the top 3 of potentially winning at Gateway, and even if he got a top 3 finish in that race, he would have had an average of like 1.2 on the ovals that year, which would have been insane. But yeah, he won 4 out of the 5 ovals that year and was just nowhere on road and street tracks. And again, I think we need to have that conversation about Newgarden because it's not good enough for him.
The exact trajectory this year. And at the same time, like, same deal at the front of the field. You really want to be giving Alex Palou a 23-point gap at the halfway point in the season when he's only just now starting to really get things going?
No. The only reason why I wouldn't really start penciling him in for the crown is because 2 things are about to happen. Number one, there's clearly a big 3 in the field this year and everybody else. I think Palou, Power, and Dixon have been in another league compared to the rest of the field. I think Herta and Kirkwood have been good, but they're lacking the real big punch of a race win, or at least a big counter punch to really get in this title fight now.
I think Kirkwood's knocking on the door. I think Kirkwood, if he can get a win on the board, that's a really interesting prospect for a title push. But also, every time we talk about that with Andretti, everything seems to fall to pieces.
Yeah. So that's not going to happen yet. The other issue is we got hybrids coming up. This was the last IndyCar race ran on an internal combustion engine. The hybrid bolt-ons start up next time out in Mid-Ohio in a week and a half's time. Now what?
Yeah, and we legitimately have no idea which engine manufacturer is going to nail that switch over. We don't know in terms of reliability what these are going to look like, given that this is a mid-season switch, and there have been teething issues, let's say, in testing. And there's no better test than actual races. We just don't know. And we're not going to know really until the checkered flag in Mid-Ohio.
I fucking hate mid-season regulation changes like this. I think they're terrible. I think it's Bush League from IndyCar that we couldn't have just waited until 2025. Why have we got to bring them in now? What's the rush? What's the hurry to get hybrid power into this sport so soon? You're already 2 years late. Like, what's another half season at this point? And if you're confident that it's fine, great, stash it for next season. Why are you bringing it in the middle of a title fight? You're opening Pandora's box for no good reason. Like, why? I just don't get this series when it comes to that. I still think it's bullshit that we're even having this conversation, but here we are. We shall see.
Decided that they're going to run hybrids, and whatever the consequences of that are, we and indeed the competitors are just going to have to live with. I just hope we don't start seeing mechanical failures decide this title, because that'd
be very unfortunate.
Yeah, especially if they happen to a Honda driver, given Honda's current position within the series.
Very much so. Very much so. We'll have to wait and see how that affects the field in mid-Ohio. At least the days of stalling engines will be dead, because at least with these new hybrids, they'll be able to restart the engine by themselves. That's a plus. Hopefully, that'll mean less cautions overall.
Boy, in a spec series, we couldn't just put starter motors on the fucking things up to this point.
Antiquated technology. We're running a 12-year-old power unit. This is what you get. So, yeah, fun times. Now, I talked about this a little bit at length already on the Le Mans review that we did, because, well, by the time we recorded it, the news had already dropped that same evening about Nolan Siegel officially joining the McLaren IndyCar team. Out of nowhere, Théo Pourchaire being dropped. No one saw this coming, like not even me. And I got half a spoiler about this via a friend of the show. I won't say who, but I was given a tip that there was something big for Nolan Siegel coming, but I didn't know exactly what it was. I thought he was going to get some sort of full-time seat for next season. It certainly was not this. And he had a good day. In the end, he made a mistake, sure, but he would come back to finish in 12th. A very solid first day at the office for Nolan Siegel in a McLaren, all told. But we never really got your opinion on it, Cam, because you obviously weren't on that Le Mans review episode, so I think it's only fair we ask you and give you the floor and say, what have you made of it all in the last week and a half?
I mean, I think Nolan Siegel's a terrific driver. I mean, he was mighty at Daytona. He was excellent at Le Mans. And the situation at Indy was not on him. He was ultimately put into a position with not very good equipment to do not very much with it. That said, pour one out along with Scott McLaughlin for all the trees sacrificed for all these McLaren contracts. I mean, does Zach Brown have a napkin contract with every living driver in this hemisphere?
It feels like it sometimes, doesn't it?
I mean, he was fine in his first race. He did have a spin. Eventually got back up to 12th. But, I mean, other than Rossi, McLaren didn't do a whole lot this weekend.
Nope.
But I just tend to think, like, they're just burning through drivers. They're burning through drivers at a geometric rate.
I've had an extra week to let my thoughts digest on this, and my opinion hasn't really changed very much.
I've digested it. I feel exactly the same.
Yeah, I feel great. No, like Nolan Siegel is a great talent. He is not Théo Pourchaire. He just isn't.
And see, I don't understand what the reasoning was around dropping Pourchaire. Pourchaire up to this point has been pretty good this season.
It doesn't stack up with anything that IndyCar has done in terms of how it's treated youth development in recent years. They have leaned on Formula 2 a lot more than it has leaned on the road to Indy in recent times, and rightly so, because the talent that has come through that has generally been very good. Christian Lundgaard, Callum Ilott, etc. Like, Théo Pourchaire was averaging around 13th as a finish when in his 5 starts he made for McLaren before he was dropped. And yes, Tony Kanaan admitted that Pourchaire had done nothing wrong on the way out. They just thought Nolan Siegel was a can't-miss talent. And a lot of people were very quick to point out Nolan Siegel's dad is rich. I say McLaren does not need a fucking pay driver. I don't care what you tell me. No team that was trying to sign Alex Palou and paid him part of his salary up front needed a pay driver in an inverted commas like Nolan Siegel, who, and let's be frank here, no one has used the phrase pay driver as an endorsement of their skill or ability. It's used as an insult. Call it what it is. You know, TK had to put an arm around another driver again and tell him that Pourchaire had done nothing wrong. And I'd like to think TK was being sincere about that. But at the same time, that's the point. Théo Pourchaire had done nothing wrong to lose his seat. And I honestly, this is a downgrade in terms of prospect to me. Like, Nolan Siegel is a great talent. Théo Pourchaire should have been in Formula One as an 18-year-old, in my opinion. I think he should have been a one-and-done F2 guy. He won the Monaco Grand Prix in F2 at 17. He is still F2's youngest ever race winner. Yeah, he won the title in year 3, but he was also inflicted by the curse of the ART and F2's general unseriousness. That's abundantly clear. Pourchaire was a high-ranking talent, and the fact that Sauber are not bending over backwards in rage that their star prospect in their academy was booted out for no discernible reason because they wrongly thought, that Nolan Siegel was this can't-miss prospect that they had to tie down now, otherwise they were going to lose him. There was no talk about another team bringing Nolan Siegel in. There was no silly season dialogue that another team was in the race. Like, I think the only reason there was even any murmurs about this was because Siegel filled in Juncos Hollinger during Road America, and then basically that meant that Siegel was going to lose his rookie status because he was going to end up with 5 starts at the end of the year alongside Dale Coyne, and then he was going to lose his rookie status. Like, that in no way meant that he should have suddenly just lost. Like, this was now all of a sudden that Siegel was this can't miss prospect that he had to sign now, otherwise we were going to lose him. You're McLaren. You're a top 3 team in the series now.
I would have an easier time believing all of that if this wasn't Arrow McLaren. And we haven't been here so many times before, because they're just... How many drivers are they going to burn through? Because Pato's tied down, Rossi's tied down, the 6 car has just been a revolving door.
I believe this is the 7th driver that has suited in McLaren colours this year across their team, and I believe it's the 6th driver that's been associated with the number 6 car in the last 12 months.
It's weird. It's weird, and it's very difficult to maintain stability in a team if you're burning through a driver that much. And then we wonder why the 6 car is usually the weakest McLaren, because they keep slotting drivers in and out of it.
And you've gone from swapping and chopping changes out, trying to talk about long-term stability, and now you've gone the complete opposite way and tied down Siegel to a contract that's at least 1.5 years long. He better be good. Look, I get it. You're never going to have someone with the upside of Alex Palou in that seat, and Alex Palou did do McLaren dirty. There is no doubt about that. And I'm not disputing that for a second, given how that legal dispute is still ongoing, right? Palou fucked Zach Brown over. That is a fact at this point, right? But the reality is, if this was about the money, it's not like the Malukas family is broke.
But Malukas didn't want to pay for the race where he was hurt and didn't drive.
So when people are so quick to make this defense of, oh, well, they need cash. No, McLaren does not need cash. McLaren is competing in multiple championships, world championship level on all fronts. They do not need to bring in a pay driver for their IndyCar program. Again, I think that's bullshit. So none of what the McLaren senior management is saying makes any sense to me. The stories do not add up. And on any level, Siegel is not Pourchaire. And I just find it bizarre that McLaren was so erratic in making such a rash decision. And I think ultimately the wrong decision. And pour one out for Théo Pourchaire, who did absolutely nothing wrong, who burned a bridge in Super Formula to even take this on in the first place. He's moved his entire life to America at age 20, which must be intimidating for anybody on a human level. He's got death threats from Augustine Canapino's fans no less than a month ago, and now he's jobless. I feel so sorry for that young man.
It's just a weird playing of events. And I know there's been plenty of people bending over backwards to justify every McLaren driver decision. And at some point, like if he doesn't, if Siegel ends up out of the seat, right at the end of this contract, when are we going to start having that discussion as a fan base at large of what the fuck is Zach doing with the 6 car?
And this is a team that wants to go to 4 cars in the near future.
Yeah, write more contracts.
They want to keep expanding. They think they've got enough to take on Penske and Ganassi with no real evidence that they've been able to do that yet. I think they need to do
the opposite. I think they need to double down their efforts on what they've already got. So we've seen plenty of teams. We've seen Penske not really be able to sustain 4 cars. Andretti really weren't able to sustain 4 cars. Ganassi are kind of doing so, but there is a clear hierarchy of Dixon and Palou, and then the other 2 cars.
3? They got 5, remember?
Isn't one of them part-time?
No, though. Kevin Simpson's full-time, but he's paying for his own seat. But they're stretched to 5. Like, that 5, they got 5 for the whole season. Like, and
somehow completely
like
spaced on that.
Yeah, like, it's weird because Marcus Armstrong's generally been pretty good this year, but there is a clear drop-off between Dixon, Palou, and everybody else. Like, some of that is rookie teething problems, no doubt, and Armstrong's only a second-year guy himself, and Simpson, anything's a bonus with Simpson because he's there to run himself more than anything else.
There to develop. Fair enough. He's done pretty well thus far this season, all things considered.
It's been fine. He's been fine. So this is the point. Teams were downsizing. Andretti went from 4 cars to 3. Penske went from 4 cars to 3. Ganassi's only gone to 5 because they've had the bill flipped on most of the other cars they run. Like, R&L's gone to 3 and have struggled. McLaren has gone to 3 and hasn't made the grounds that it was hoping to with that 3rd car. Because the number 6 has not had anything worth a damn to write home about. Between Alex Rossi and Felix Rosenqvist, everything that's been in the 3rd McLaren since its inception has not been good enough. Like, Rossi's having his best year at McLaren so far this season, but he's still 7th. That's not what you sign Alex Rossi to do. You want Rossi to be a title contender, and
hasn't been that in a little while, unfortunately.
Hasn't been that in 5 years, Cam.
Yeah.
Like, again, I don't get why more people aren't giving Alex Rossi more shit for that. Like, it's just like, guys, he was the face of the series 5 years ago. Like, here we are, but I'd be the hater for pointing that out. As I've always said, podcasters are terrible people. But
we know.
Here we are. It's a bizarre fucking trend, and I don't get why we're at that
I don't
point.
get what the end game is.
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird. All I'm saying is, if Nolan Siegel ends up being a brilliant talent, then fucking fantastic. Fair play to them. They got the right one. I hope, for Nolan's sake, because he's a good kid, he's a fast talent, no doubt about it. The pay driver accusations are harsh and I think are not valid, given how we use that term. Siegel's a great talent, and I'm delighted for him personally. If you've been given the opportunity, by all means, go get it, kid. And I sincerely hope he does well with the opportunity. But you cannot talk about Siegel in a McLaren without talking about the bullshit with McLaren politics to get to this point. And I'm not sure if that's the best environment for him to succeed in, but we will have to see how that plays out. Last big story was that it was announced last week that IndyCar is heading to Fox in 2025. It's kind of been teased, and we've kind of known that this was the direction where shit was going in for quite some time. Since the start of the season, really, there was murmurs that Fox was going to invest in IndyCar. We're not getting Lee Diffie on NBC now for the rest of the year. He's going to be calling Fox's NASCAR races very, very soon. Diffie does everything in North America these days. He's doing track and field, as I mentioned in the last episode, and all that too. He's doing the Olympics later this year. He's one of the most versatile commentators in the world. We love Lee Diffie. We might have low-key not even really acknowledged that he might have just called his last 500 which is such a shame because,
Good at
he's
it.
He's a fantastic commentator. And I hope Lee lands on his feet whatever he decides to do, and he probably will end up doing a whole bunch because he's a talent. But you see what I'm getting at here is that IndyCar's going to Fox next year, and I am a filthy Brit, so I don't know the full lay of the land or the context of it. People have asked me, well, Dre, what does it mean for IndyCar in the UK? I can't give you an answer to that yet because international deals are cut separately. So
what we do know is, one of the things about that is that NBC, Comcast, and Sky are all part of the same corporate entity.
Mm-hmm.
That will no longer be the case for IndyCar.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Like I said, international deals are cut separately, from these big-bodied North American contracts, so it's still up in the air. So for those who have been asking me, I wish I could give you a straight answer. I can't. We're just going to have to wait for the powers that be to see who will take this series on. I have a hunch where I think it will end up, but I'll talk about that a bit later. We've got to talk about it from the American angle first. And, Cam, your American TV. Obviously, you know the lay of the land for motorsport coverage in the US. How do you feel about it?
Well, unfortunately, we got a pretty good representation of what life has been like with NBC and IndyCar. For those who don't know, I did not end up going to last weekend's NASCAR race in Loudon because it rained all weekend. Took the weekend off. Worked out brilliantly with when the Celtics won the championship, but not so much for me actually going to the damn race. Well, with the rain delay occurring on Sunday, now the race it did eventually restart, and they ran the rest on rain tires over in NASCAR. IndyCar got stuffed. They actually had their broadcast channel taken away, and it got plopped onto Peacock, and then the rest of the race on CNBC. They favored a rain-delayed NASCAR race over IndyCar.
Says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Says it all about IndyCar's standing in terms of TV ratings when it's not the 500. I can only hope that IndyCar is treated with a little bit more respect. I hope they take actions to deserve a little bit more respect with regards to the marketing of the series. That old chestnut. What I will also say is that Fox's NASCAR coverage has been ultra cheeks the last couple of years. Mike Joy is carrying that motherfucker for all of that he's worth, and there is not a lot left in the tank. My dog Nigel has joined us to give us his 2 cents. Hey, buddy.
Thanks, Nigel. What do you reckon, Nigel? Good move?
He's mad it didn't end up on CW.
Ah, shit.
No one listened to Nigel. But yeah, I really don't know what to think about this. We don't know who they're going to get for the broadcast itself. But it has
There's
to.
murmurs they might go for Hinch or Townsend or both, potentially, is what they're saying. They might.
Oh boy, more worship of Santino Ferrucci. Great.
The selfish part of me kind of hopes they take Townsend, if for no other reason it would mean we get Hinch on F1 TV more often.
You're a selfish lover, aren't you?
I am a very selfish lover, only because Hinch is brilliant on F1 TV. Shout out to one of our Discord members, Mike Cabela, who is wonderful and who streams all of the F1 races via totally legal means via the F1 TV, which we can't get in the UK. But their team with Laura Winter, Will Buxton, Ruth Buscombe recently, Jolyon Palmer, James Hinchcliffe. It's a great team. I'll say it full-heartedly. I enjoy their coverage more than Sky's, who are too busy hiring a reptilian as part of their coverage, depending on who you ask. So,
dear God. Let's not touch that.
That's fun.
Now or ever. But yeah.
That's probably what she said.
Nigel,
I'm sorry.
Right now.
It's entirely fair.
But yeah, so what I think as far as the broadcast, whoever they get, they've got plenty of talent out there to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have Hinch over in IndyCar just because I think he's fucking good at it.
He's a natural.
He's been good at it ever since he got in the booth. But the recent treatment of NASCAR on Fox does not give me a lot of hope.
I do believe that at least IMS Productions are taking over that side of things, so hopefully it'll be fine, but IMS Productions aren't wonderful either.
They're going to have to be. They're not going to have a choice next year if they're producing the actual TV side of it. And especially, they're going to have to step it up for the 500 as well, because if nothing else, NBC has done excellent coverage for the 500.
Yeah, they have put all their eggs in that basket, and it has largely worked. Can't argue with that. Again, they had an excellent 500 in terms of viewership this year. I think it was, 5.3 million this year? And that was with a 4-hour rain delay. NBC will take that to the fucking bank. The Kyle Larson effect was huge on this year's race. No doubt about it. People had tuned in with Larson in mind. If you're going to cash in on a NASCAR crossover, why not? It's where the smart money is. So take it where you can get it, quite frankly. No, I'm in full agreement. Look, a TV network that treats a racing series with the respect that it deserves can only be a good thing, because NBC clearly have not done that for the entirety of the series. Yes, for the 500, but we all know that's their big money pot. Not the other 16 races of the year. I do have concerns for the most part. For example, we've seen next year's calendar that came out alongside the announcement. There are concerns. For example, Gateway being, where half the field's going to be at Le Mans,
Dre,
is not going to go down well. Yeah.
Why is the series ending its calendar in August?
I do not, for the life of me, understand why. Though I worked it out the other day. I mean, Zoe claims it's the NFL, but yeah, she says she's guessing, but it's not a bad guess, because the NFL season runs from September to early February, which is fine, not disputing that. But how do you help promote a series and keep it relevant when it's got a 6-month off season?
It's just going to fall out of people's minds. It's the same thing that we were saying about F2 a couple of years ago, and there were multiple month gaps between races.
And it's the same problem. You look at the calendar again, it's the same problems. The season starts very slow, couple of 3 and 2 week breaks early on. Then you get to the month of May, and then there's only 4 free weekends left for the rest of the season, from May all the way till the end of August. They're going to just jam pack the back half of the year with everything.
It feels weird.
They're going down the NASCAR road. They want to have Sunday night racing, have IndyCar on in the afternoon, then have NASCAR on in the evening. That's what I think they're trying to aim for here.
I mean, sure, but there's plenty of races that are in the Sunday afternoon for NASCAR. So if you're going to be competing directly with NASCAR, that's suicide as far as an American racing series. You are losing that every time.
Well, more people watch the NASCAR Truck Series than watch IndyCar outside of the 500.
Dre, they prioritized a NASCAR rain delay over the start of the IndyCar race.
Yep. They moved it to CNBC.
Drop the mic. That's all there is to say. I know. It was raining outside my house at the same time.
So it can't be worse than that situation on NBC. And there's other little trickles of good news, like Indy Next is going to be on Fox 2. It's going to have a straight up home on TV going forward. That's objectively good news. That's great news for Indy Next as a feeder series. More TV coverage is good. Hopefully that means more money into the road to Indy and actually giving the road to Indy a fighting chance of competing with F2. Because, like I said before in this pod, F2 is stealing a lot of the talent that the road to Indy could be utilizing right now. So having an actual televised home for Indy Next is very good news. I just hope overall the series is treated with the respect that it deserves. I would really like to see IndyCar get a free-to-air TV deal in the UK. I know that's not likely going to happen because people just don't care about IndyCar here at all. The only reason they started showing Indy Next here was because of Jamie Chadwick. Which,
less said about that, the better.
Not a surprise if, Sky Sports are very good at hooking the big one-off stories when it comes to IndyCar, because the two big things that have hooked them to IndyCar in recent years was the rise of Jamie Chadwick going over there and Miles Rowe's story. because Sky Sports F1 did a feature piece on Force Indy, and that felt like, you know, a nice hand-in-hand gesture alongside the Black Lives Matter movement. But, you know, it's Sky likes that hook. And the reason why I say this is because Louis Foster is the championship leader in Indy Next right now. He is British. He is 20 years old. He has less experience than Jamie Chadwick and is a better talent than Jamie Chadwick. And it's not like Sky Sports F1 are lining up round the block to feature Louis Foster.
Mm.
And he's brilliant. But for those who didn't know, he won both Indy Next races at Laguna Seca and dominated both those races.
Out of the water.
Yeah, destroyed the field. And for those who know me, I've been screaming about Louis Foster since the end of last year in Indy Next. I've said this kid is him. Hire him. He is good. But unfortunately, Andretti decided to spend $3 million a year on Marcus Ericsson instead. Whoops. So what's the point of having
May? That went well.
Yeah. And his month of May was a complete write-off. And he was, 18th again here today? I mean, yeah, Ericsson's been cheeks for a little while in that 28 car, unfortunately. But, hey, you know, what's the point of having someone like Chadwick and Foster in your academy if there is no chance of them getting a race, given you've gone all in on youth and then you've spent big money on Marcus Ericsson? I don't get the direction of your team.
It's another driver program that just features a lot of contradiction with its own end game. And when you get that situation, unfortunately, you know, we've talked quite a bit, because it's not just here, it's everywhere. Too many drivers, not enough seats. Well, it's not helping when you're hiring drivers to groom into those seats and then they don't end up going anywhere because you just pick someone else anyway.
IndyCar is back in a week and a half time. Its first ever hybrid race on the streets of Mid-Ohio. Well, not streets, but it's the Mid-Ohio road course next week. And generally a pretty interesting Grand Prix. That'll be one to keep an eye on, certainly. In the meantime, we'll have the F1 Austrian Grand Prix. And I can finally say, after a month away, the bikes are back this weekend for the Assen TT. Yes! Assen.
Even in this era, Assen is always good.
Oh, baby. The best bike round on the calendar, the Assen TT.
Second best.
Praise Jesus. Yeah, probably. It's a 1A and 1B. Etc. But yes, the Assen TT and Formula One in Austria next weekend. Can't wait for both of them. Until then, I've been Dre Harrison. He's been Cam Buckley. Until next time, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Sayonara.
Alex Palou has been him, and will continue to be until further notice.
The himminest him who's ever hymned.